It's news roundup time. We got a bunch of stuff happening in UGA football and basketball that we need to talk about next. Locked on Bulldogs.
You are Locked on Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Locked on Bulldogs, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. GameTime.co. Download the Game Time app today. Get $20 off your first purchase. Game Time. Get in the game. Today, we're talking about a few different things. We're talking news roundup because a bunch of notable things are happening UGA and college football as well as college basketball right now. You need to be involved in it because January is coming and going, and we do have National Signing Day, which means nothing anymore. National Signing Day is a joke. It's a myth. It's just like eligibility. What you thought eligibility was is not, and what you thought National Signing Day was, oh, that's not either. None of those things are true, but we're going to talk about that. In second and third segments, some recruits that have official visits already for Georgia for next year, and what we wrapped up this year with the signing class that hopefully is taken care of and who we have in tow, and are there major flips out there. But first, I want to get to Michel Williams. The Senior Bowl came and passed, and we saw a number of notable dogs jump up the boards on a bunch of draft prospects. Now, normally we don't care about draft prospect boards because A, it's a joke, because just like hypothetical situations with roster management and what guys should be good and matchups across the teams, it's all a joke. It's not really there. It's all emotional. However, Michel Williams, my goodness, he is skyrocketing up boards. He has the skill, he has the ability, he has the size, he has the speed and the weight combination. But now from the practice, what everybody is saying and what scouts, what GMs, what coaches are all talking about is if you want a ready-made product in the NFL, go to Georgia. Go to Kirby Smart. Michel Williams has taken over a position 15th in the latest mock draft projections, up from where he was. He was somewhere in the mid-20s to the late of the end of the first round, but now he's as high as 15 on some boards. Some boards have Michel Williams 15. I'm sorry, not Michel Williams. Malachi Starks going 15. The Eagles are in that range with a couple of move-ups and a couple of people's boards. I don't think that's going to happen with safety for them, but Michel comes in. And let me just say this. I'm going to say this about Michel, but about this draft class for Georgia. The guy's eligible to go in. Michel and Jalen Walker are going to be studs. Malachi Starks, it has everything. You want size, speed, intelligence. He has that as well. Like, I get that. I know that. I understand that. But the play on the field this year left a lot to the imagination. Michel Williams and Jalen Walker, their play on the field didn't lead a lot to the imagination. The defensive line, the linebackers didn't play as well. We weren't up to par on a bunch of things like that. I understand. But if you're telling me Michel Williams can get into a system, can take what he had already grabbed, which was great release off the edge, great motor, incredible hands, and a long, athletic, strong bodied young man coming off the edge, Michel's going to do just fine in the league. Like, he is prototypical. He's just like everything else. Remember when Nolan Smith, y'all remember Nolan Smith, the same denigration that Nolan Smith got, Michel Williams is getting as well. And it's a shame because you look at Nolan Smith and we said bust, look at the sack numbers, look at the production, what's going on, without actually just looking at the tape. I don't understand why coaches are allergic to work. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Your job is to look at tape. Your job is to be a coach. Your job is to know and develop players, and yet you refuse to do so with these college kids. And I'm at a loss. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm at a loss. Just turn on the tape, Michel, and you're going to see a guy coming off the edge. And you saw it at the Reese Senior Bowl practices. I mean, this guy was everywhere. He's as advertised. You're not going to have to get any secrets or any mystery with him. High motor, great hand use, incredible athlete. Michel's a real deal. Second dude, that was a real deal. Y'all, we tried to tell you Dan Jackson was a revelation for us in the secondary last year. We try to tell you ever since the trajectory of him and Stetson Bennett is comically paralleled. Like we try not doing this a lot, okay, with certain players. But if you look at what's going on, you can't help but doing it. Dan Jackson starts against Clemson a couple of years ago. Daniel and I were there in person watching it, and we watched him play really, really well with two Smith brothers that were incredibly well. Tyke Smith and Christopher Smith are two great safeties playing in the league right now, doing a lot of damage, doing a lot of work. Dan Jackson was the third of those three at the moment, at the time that he played. But all of a sudden comes along, and dude is insanely talented. Like, not just a tryhard, not just a gym dude, not just somebody who you think, oh, maybe he's a special teamer. No. This guy is more than a special teamer. He's more than a gym rat, and he's more than a coach on the field. He is all of those things. Those are true. But he's also punishing receivers at the point of contact, at the point of completion with the football. He's doing work, y'all. Dan Jackson has just made his way into a mid to late round, talking late round 5. I can see Dan Jackson going round 5. I really, really can. I could see him going somewhere up there. And if you look at the what you need in the NFL now, you're telling me that a guy who can cover tight ends, middle of the field, Eric Weddle was not a dude that was simply a fast guy. Ed Reed is, best safety in the entire world. He was faster than everybody, stronger than everybody. Like the dude was just smarter and had football IQ out the window, and he was gifted like Shaq in the NBA. He won the DNA lottery. Dan Jackson did not win the DNA lottery, but he's made himself and sculpted himself into he is an athlete. Because I saw contested balls against the highest of high caliber wide receivers at the Reese Senior Bowl practices and the game. And he did fine. He did so much so that his teammates were like, that's the dude. We want him. He's the one that we want representing the best defensive player here down in Mobile. Like, guys, Dan Jackson, I'm not trying to just pump him up because he's a Georgia dude. I don't do that. We're famous on this podcast for calling out a bunch of Georgia guys that did not live up to expectation. Dan Jackson not only lived up to expectation, he surpassed the expectation. And he's going to make an NFL team better. He's going to be in the middle of the field. He's going to be roaming around. He's going to be afraid of hitting? Nope. You think a running back is going to come down and a linebacker that's no longer the average linebacker 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 6'5", 258. That was the average NFL linebacker. Ain't no time for that anymore. Dan Jackson is a safety guy that's not just in the box. He's not John Lynch only because, again, he can go back and he can cover a dude screaming up the seam. He can be over the top and cover too. He can do those things. That's no problem for him. I'm all in on Dan Jackson, especially after performing. Michel Williams is going to be a steal of the draft. I really, really think so. People are not talking about it. He's a top 10 player in this draft. I don't care what anybody else says. We're going to come back to this. I'm going to talk about a couple of recruits that are already setting official dates. Some of them, the only official date they have is Georgia. And we're making our way up the board on a number of guys. I want to talk about that. But first, these. And these are, in fact, Game Time. GameTime.co. Download the Game Time app right now. Whether you want to go to, concerts or NHL or soon to be Major League Baseball, as well as NBA playoffs are heating up. I'm hearing there's some rumbling about some trade rumors in the NBA, as well as if you want to go ahead and get into the very, very grande, giant, gigante bowl that is happening sometime in the next week. Game Time gets you into action. GameTime.co, Game Time app. Download it right now. You're going to put over that slider. It's going to be all upfront pricing. Everything that you're going to need from view from your seat and 110% money back guarantee if you find a cheaper price, which you won't because Game Time has the best. Right now, download Game Time app, GameTime.co. Put in promo code LockedOnCollege, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. It's Locked On College, $20 off. In the app, GameTime.co. Terms apply. Let's get to some recruiting news because National Signing Day is coming up. And this is what's weird about National Signing Day. National Signing Day used to be, I was talking to some people about this earlier. Do you all remember when Roquan Smith, and Roquan's going to come up in a couple times this segment because we're talking about recruiting. We're talking about a fax machine. I need to go buy a relic fax machine and sign it with Roquan's name and jersey somewhere and put them side by side in a shrine to him. What I count as the best linebacker to ever play at UGA, Roquan Smith. That's my personal opinion. He's my favorite player of all time. It's not even close. He's the one that if I were to wear jerseys, we don't really wear jerseys, Daniel and I. We wear team logo and team shirts, all that stuff. But jerseys, no. But if I were, it would be Roquan Smith jersey for sure. He was the best at linebacker. He came to Georgia because UCLA, he was UCLA primed, all ready to go. Didn't get his paperwork in, fax machine malfunction. It gave Georgia enough time to get in, to talk, and to convince him and persuade him to come to UGA. He goes on to have one of the most illustrious careers that I've ever seen at linebacker. And that was a drama-fueled final day of national signing period. Guess what? Those days are gone. Like definitively 100% no longer possible because we have so many. We have early signing period, an early signing period, a national signing period. Then we do the classes. Then we do the rankings. There's only 2 left of, I think, the top 50 or top 100 recruits in the entire nation that's unsigned. There's not a lot of drama going on. And it's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of a joke anymore. I think with the portal window closing down to just one time, the National Signing Day is also going to close in. It's not going to be the same that we had before. But nonetheless, let's talk about some recruits that we got coming in. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you this right now. This class coming up for Georgia, this 2025 class that's going to be signed, has the potential to be another of the 19, another of the 20 draft classes that went on, or the signing class that went on to be the 21-22 national championship teams. This class has that ability because we are top heavy. The ceiling on these guys is incredible, but not only the ceiling, but there's probably 6 or 7 ceilings that are really, really, really sky high. Elijah Griffin, he could be a revelation on the defensive line for us. He could be, again, I hate Jalen Carter-esque, at least impact. We have linebackers. We have wide receivers, the best duo that we've had in 5 years coming to UGA at wide receiver for us. Talon Taylor, CJ Wiley. It's going to be incredible. But a couple of the names that we have coming after that are of note because the drama is pretty much taken out of this signing period. We know who we're going to get. Daniel and I will do a whole breakdown once that signing day hits of who we have in the class, because I really do think that this class has the opportunity to elevate us once more. I think this team right now is very talented, but we're not dropping off in that. And this class is like it was a year or two before national championship run that was just stockpiled with people. We went from the Monty Rices of the world, good, reliable linebacker that I loved, to the Roquan Smiths of the world. And I think this draft class has, or this signing class has it. But before we get to that, and we will break it down, I want to talk about a couple guys that are in the next cycle, 2026. 2026. We have 3 guys on the radar right now. One of them was committed to Georgia, decommitted from Georgia, but that does not stop Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo. I've said Mike Bobo, and people are going to absolutely lose their mind when I utter the name Mike Bobo. So just so we're fully aware. I really, really think that these 3 names I'm going to give you have a high likelihood, Jared Curtis being one of them, have a high likelihood of coming back. And I'm going to tell you where they stand in recruiting and who they are. And we're going to start first with Brandon Arrington. Brandon Arrington is a 4-star, probably going to be up to that 5-star when all is said and done, nationally ranked inside the top 25. So of those kids that get the 5-star, there's only a certain amount that are doled out. He's going to be getting one of them. He's 6'2", 180, Spring Valley, California. Mount Miguel. Right now, all the teams that are after him, Oregon, Texas A&M, USC, Alabama, Arizona, West Coast teams are there. Of course, hello, duh, it's going to be there because he's on the West Coast out in California. Last time Georgia went down in California, pulled out somebody, it was quite the hall in Brock Bowers. He has an official visit scheduled. He probably will be coming in and talking to Kirby, and Kirby going to see him a couple more times. He's in 2026, not 2025. Like I said, Brandon Arrington, he's an athlete. This kid is June bug fast, duck on a June bug fast. He is a sprinter. Some of his best times a 10-400 meter. This guy has won state track finals in 2024. Clocked even a couple of years ago in the 10-5 range, and every school is after him. Kirby Smart has placed himself right in the thick of guys like this, and I think the draft class with Talon Taylor, as well as CJ Wiley, with a couple more on the way, we already have a wide receiver in tow from California who's a speedster. I think adding this guy who's an athlete would be just as well. Now, if I'm making my bet, it's going to come down between a school like Oregon making a big push for him. Dan Lanning, West Coast, great offense, all of that is going to be there. But I think Georgia does have an actual shot because they've shown themselves to be people or be a school whose people are focused on fixing and getting the holes that are needed filled, which we saw in this draft or the portal, as well as the signees. I think we have a shot at this kid. He's going to be top 25 when all is said and done in that draft class. He's an elite speedster. Brandon Arrington, learn the name out of Spring Valley, California, athlete who has a high likelihood of making his way to Georgia. It's not just smoke. There's a lot of connections that we'll break down as it keeps going. The other name I'm going to tease to you and introduce him just a little bit, and then we're going to go to break. We're going to come back because these next two actually aren't just tangential connections, aren't just people talking about them, a little bit of smoke, but real. We have buddies, we have friends, we know people there. We have official visits. Some of them are the only official visits they have scheduled so far. Multiple coming back in the state of one of these recruits. Multiple official visits as he's already taken and will take at Georgia. The name that you need to learn, Tyler Atkinson, linebacker, 6'2", 205, and he is from none other than Loganville, Georgia. Grayson High, class of 2026, and all the schools that are after him are the big boppers like you'd expect, Ohio State, Clemson, but then the SEC comes in, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia. Other schools, the list of schools that have gone ahead and given him: Texas, Tennessee, Florida State, Florida, Arkansas, Arizona State. Everybody wants this kid. I'm going to come back and let you know why that is, because there's a name in which was told to me, and I told you he was going to come up multiple times in this episode. Guys, I pause every single time. A recruiter, now again, national recruiters, if you actually did your job well, if you were actually incredible at your job, you would be on the coaching staff of a college team because you could spot the players that are going to be incredible who are not being sought by others. You would know where the 3 stars are actually 4 stars, the 4 stars that are actually 5 stars. You'd do a great job of that, and Kirby Smart would hire you. However, when this recruiting analyst said he's like a UGA great, I paused, I stopped, and I said, I need to know more about this kid. I'm going to let you know who that was, but first, these. Okay, the name that I gave you before we went to break and we were coming back is Tyler Atkinson, 6'2", 205, out of Grayson High in Georgia. This right now is top 10 national linebacker. He plays linebacker. He is quick. He is fast. All of that is true, but his production is really what the key in this whole equation is. He's a highly productive kid that on the field looks quicker on the field than he probably does any other place. And I know that sounds weird, and I know that sounds dorky because a time is a time, but there are players that when they hit the field have no wasted movement. It's kind of like in basketball when no missteps on the court. If you're just running around and you're exhausting yourself, it's not good. This cat does not have wasted steps when he is out there. He is very quick. He is very athletic. The thing that probably goes ahead and stops him from being the number one in the class, or arguably a top number one, or people can knock on him a little bit, is the fact that he's not as bulky and not as strong as people want him to be. He needs to beef up. He needs to get bigger on that. That is true. But so far, he's a leader. He is athletic, and he's just productive. He gets after the ball carrier. He has a bunch of QB hurries. He has a bunch of sacks, and he has a bunch of tackles. top 10 player. He's going to get that 5th star. Right now, people have him projected to go to Georgia. He is a fan favorite in Georgia with the coaches, and he have a strong relationship. I think Tyler Atkinson is going to be a kid, going to be a name that will eventually, I do think this one, I think he does eventually sign in before the final signing period in next January, or next February, I should say. I think he's one of the main staples of this class, and I think we build around. I think he continues the legacy of linebacker play at UGA, and the name that is harkened back by a number of analysts is, in fact, Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith, we called the eraser. He's an absolute. When he's on the field, you can have a busted play, you can have a messed up play, you can have a play in which people go the wrong way on assignment, and an eraser comes in and can take care of errors. What it really does is it says, if we have the wrong play called, he could still make up for it. This isn't Patrick Willis, which I think we have in Justin Williams on the team already. This is, if it's a Roquan Smith type guy, if a back got busted out of the run blocking scheme and was going to the outside and was making his way to an alley, Roquan Smith would get him before he made yard 5. Because the defensive end sucked down too much, or because a combo block got up to the other linebacker, and Roquan was playing weak side linebacker, got over both of those, got through the wash, and got over to the opposite end and made the play. So you're telling me this guy can do? Sign me up for that, because now we're talking in the mold of Smile Munden a little bit more. Smile, as Kirby Smart has said this week, is probably the most athletic linebacker he has coached at UGA, which is one heck of a praise. I got to be honest with you. One heck of a praise, if I'm being real. But the prize of this 2026 class, the one that everybody has, the one that's going to give people fits, because we were talking about having a 5-star name brand out of not within the state of Georgia coming in, and maybe some connections to Tennessee, was Arch Manning. Couldn't land him, couldn't get him. Everybody was very sad by it. Everybody was quite depressed that we did not get Arch. Now, it's yet to be seen what that actually means for us, because Arch has done 0 things as of today. I think he's the better quarterback. I think he is a better quarterback than Quinn Ewers, but it's yet to be seen. So hold on, Georgia fans. Don't be so sad. And that's, in fact, Jared Curtis. Jared Curtis is a guy. And don't look at that. It's not Curtin. It's Curtis. What is going on? There we go. We fixed it. He was part of UGA's signing class. He left that signing class, wanted to open up his recruitment a little bit more. And when he did, it seemed like the sky was falling. Everybody was mad. Everybody was pissed off. Everybody didn't know what to do with themselves. He's from Nashville. He plays at Nashville Christian School. 6'4", 225, and he is the bona fide, likely the top quarterback in this 2026 cycle. I don't know who else is really. Now, you can give me, you look at field or a film, and you look at who these other quarterbacks are, right? Brandon going to Tennessee, Faison Brandon. Okay, but he's got some electricity in his arm. I don't think his frame is there. I don't think that he has enough polish and power on the ball. I think he's got a live arm. It's a pretty dang good arm. I'm not doubting that. But when you look at them side by side, I don't think it's actually that fair to anybody else. I think Jared Curtis is head and shoulders above anybody else. Ryder Lyons going to USC, likely. He has some of that same polish. He's out of Folsom, California. He might have that a little bit, Will. Jonas Williams as well, 6'1", 200 pounds, out of Illinois. He's going to Oregon, likely. The cream of the crop for quarterback in 2026 is Jared Curtis. And we have a shot to bite back into the apple and get back into it. We're fending off people, South Carolina, all the usuals again, South Carolina, Alabama, Auburn, Oregon is in the mix, which is really, really just a shame if you look at some of these schools, because when he opened it back up, what he's saying is NIL deal. I'm here at Georgia. I like Georgia. As a matter of fact, many people are still predicting him to go to Georgia. But I don't know if another school has the ability to say what Georgia says. We have Puglisi, that's true. We have Gunnar Stockton, that's true. But if you're looking at Ryan Montgomery, who's in there, is not the same talent, I don't think, as Jared Curtis. Alabama probably has a guy right now who's going to start as a true freshman that's going to take over Ohio State, has slangs. Like I don't know who else. South Carolina, probably, Sellers is going to be ready to go after the draft and get highly drafted. Georgia's in a great position to go ahead and say, not only do we have wide receiver room taken care of, we have a renewed offensive line, we have the stable of running backs that's always there at Georgia. I think the NIL deal is going to be the final cherry on top to really push Georgia. Kirby has said it's part of his entire system that he's not going to overpay for anybody. He doesn't care what your name is, which is why we did not land Arch Manning. Kirby said, let's play a game of chicken and ultimately let him walk. Now, you cannot like that. You can say that's bad. You can question him, and it might be the case, but Justin Fields didn't start at Georgia, and he didn't amount to a national championship, nor much of anything in the NFL, nor was I sad when that took place, because Kirby Smart said, I'm not playing this game. I'm going to play the best one possible. Jared Curtis, we have stiff competition. Just stiff competition. The visits he has lined up here, who's Jared Curtis is going to visit already, the official visits, in which you only get a limited number of them. He's going to South Carolina, Georgia, Oregon, and Auburn. It seems to me that barring just some craziness, we're going to get to the season and those 4 teams, June 20th at South Carolina, June 13th at Georgia, June 6th at Oregon, and May 16th at Auburn. Georgia gets one of the last visits. I think we have more, he has more to gain coming to Georgia than going to South Carolina. Auburn, Oregon are interesting to me because I think they're going to have maybe a couple of new coaches, possibly. I don't know what Dan Lanning, the rumors of him going on. I don't think that's true. Dan Lanning's going to stay there, but I definitely think Auburn's going to have a new coach by then. So that, for me, takes them out of the equation. Oregon is on the West Coast. It's hard to get there. As one who lived out on the West Coast, it's hard to get out to Eugene. It's not as easy coming from Nashville. He wants to have the biggest platform in the world, but I don't think Oregon's in. I truly think that South Carolina is our biggest competition in this. Auburn's coaching vulnerability, as well as Oregon's, they're going to go to the transfer portal and they're going to get the next best Dylan Gabriel. That's kind of Oregon's system. We're going to go do that with wide receivers. Oregon's going to do it with quarterbacks. I think Jared Curtis wants to come on back to Georgia. He decommitted, but I do not think Kirby Smart certainly hasn't let up. Bobo hasn't let up. Nobody has let up. And Jared Curtis has given no indication that Georgia is out of the race. As a matter of fact, it's only intensified. It's kind of like, you don't know what you have till it's gone. Maybe he needed some time outside of the system to come on back and say, hey, I like it here, y'all. It's fantastic. Jared Curtis is the real deal. He's going to be what I consider the best quarterback. No matter what you do, cycle rankings, I don't care. It's why I think Puglisi was actually probably top 4 quarterbacks in last year's cycle before he got his freshman year under his feet here at Georgia. I think Jared Curtis is likely the top, regardless of what any industry experts say. And we got a great shot to land him, which I'm thrilled for. This has been Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We'll be back tomorrow, Daniel and I together, talking about a whole host of positional breakdown. Looking forward to the spring game as well as what we anticipate next year. Your team every single day. We'll see you guys then.